The great chamber of the Galactic Council had stood for 11 million years. Its walls were made of crystal that sang when light touched them. Its floors were carved from stone taken from dead stars. In all that time, it had seen empires rise and fall. It had watched species go to war and make peace. It had witnessed 17 extinction votes, and 17 species had been erased from existence. Today, every seat was filled. Over 3,000 delegates from across the galaxy had come. Some had traveled for months to be here. Others had simply appeared, their bodies made of light or energy or things that had no name in any language. They had all come for the same reason. They had come to decide if humanity should die. Ambassador of the Dominion moved toward the central podium. His body was long and serpentine, covered in scales that glowed with soft blue light. When he was calm, the light was steady. When he was angry, it pulsed like a heartbeat. Right now, it was pulsing very fast. Behind him, a massive holographic screen flickered to life. The image showed a region of space near the outer rim of the galaxy. Stars burned in the darkness. Planets hung like jewels on invisible strings, and in the center of it all, ships were burning. 72 standard rotations ago, began. His voice translated into 1,000 languages by the ancient machines of the Council. The species known as humanity committed an act that has no precedent in our records. An act so dangerous that we have no laws to address it. The footage began to play. A fleet of human ships appeared on the screen. They were small compared to most vessels in the galaxy, blocky, ugly. There were only 40 of them. They were facing a harvester armada. Gasps echoed through the chamber. There were legends, nightmares. Their bioships were living creatures the size of moons, and they consumed everything in their path. Entire civilizations had fallen before them. For 3,000 years, every species in the galaxy had followed the same rule when they saw coming. Run. The humans did not run. On the screen, the tiny human fleet spread out into a formation that made no tactical sense to any of the watching delegates. Then they fired. Weapons that should not have existed lit up the darkness. Explosions bloomed like flowers made of fire. The massive ships, each one capable of destroying a planet, began to die. 18 minutes later, the Harvester Armada was gone. Nothing remained but debris and silence. The chamber was completely quiet. "This is not a celebration," said, his scales now burning bright red. "This is a warning. The humans have been part of our galactic community for only 200 cycles. In that time, they have learned things that took our civilizations thousands of years to discover. They breed faster than any species we have ever recorded. They survive in environments that would kill most of us within hours. And now we see what they do to those they consider enemies." He swept his arm toward the frozen image of destruction on the screen. They did not capture, though. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply erased them from existence. Every single ship, every single gone. The delegates began to murmur among themselves. The beings of living crystal made clicking sounds of distress. The Etherians, creatures of pure energy, flickered between visible and invisible, a sign that they were deeply troubled. "I have studied the humans," continued. "I have read their history. Do you know what I found? War. Endless war. They fight each other constantly. They have weapons capable of destroying their own planet, and they have come close to using them many times. They are violent. They are unpredictable. And now they have the power to destroy fleets that have terrorized us for." He paused to let his words sink in. "Today they killed because they attacked them. But what happens tomorrow? What happens when they decide that one of us is a threat? What happens when they look at our worlds and see resources they want? What happens when they simply get bored with peace?" The High Arbiter of the Council spoke. It was an artificial intelligence called Thessaly 9, ancient beyond measure. Its consciousness spread across servers that orbited dead suns. Its voice was felt as much as heard, vibrating through the bodies of every being in the chamber. Ambassador formally moves for an emergency extinction vote regarding the species Homo. According to council law, the motion requires 70% approval to pass. The accused species will be permitted one advocate to speak in their defense. 3,000 pairs of eyes turned toward the smallest delegation alcove in the chamber. It was tucked away in a corner, barely visible, assigned to humanity because they were considered unimportant newcomers who would never have anything meaningful to say. A single figure stood up. She was small by galactic standards. No scales, no claws, no natural weapons of any kind. Her hair was dark with streaks of silver, and her eyes were the color of a stormy sky. She wore a simple uniform with medals on her chest, each one representing a battle she had survived. Admiral had been a soldier for 40 years. She had fought in wars that most of the galaxy did not even know about. She had held dying friends in her arms and ordered attacks that killed thousands. She had seen the worst that the universe had to offer. She was not afraid of politicians. The Admiral walked slowly toward the podium. Her boots made soft sounds against the ancient stone floor. She could feel the weight of 3,000 stares pressing down on her. Many of those stares were hostile. Some were curious. A few were simply waiting to see what she would do. When she reached the podium, she did not look at the evidence against her species. She did not look at Ambassador. She looked out at the assembled delegates, meeting as many eyes as she could. Then she smiled. "My name is," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I am here to speak for humanity. I am here to speak for 8 billion people on Earth and another 6 billion scattered across the stars. I am here to speak for every man, woman, and child who woke up this morning, not knowing that their entire species might be sentenced to death before sunset." She paused. "Ambassador has shown you footage of humans destroying a fleet. He has told you that we are dangerous. He has told you that we are violent. He has told you that we should be feared." Her smile faded, replaced by something harder, something older. "He is absolutely right. We are all of those things. But before you vote to kill us, I think you deserve to know why." She pressed a button on the podium, and the holographic screen changed. "Let me tell you a story about what humanity actually is." Admiral stood at the podium and let the silence stretch. She had learned long ago that silence was a weapon. It made people uncomfortable. It made them lean forward and pay attention. Right now, 3,000 alien delegates were paying very close attention. 187 years ago, she began, humanity received its first contact from an extraterrestrial species. We were excited. We had dreamed of this moment for centuries. We had sent messages into space, hoping someone would answer. We built telescopes to search for signs of life. We made movies about friendly aliens who would come and share their wisdom with us. She pressed a button, and the holographic screen showed Earth as it had looked nearly 2 centuries ago. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling over a world that had never known it was being watched. The species that found us was called the Coordinator Collective. They arrived in ships that blocked out the sun. They had technology we could not understand. They had weapons we could not fight, and they did not come in peace. The screen changed to show massive ships hovering over human cities. People in the streets were looking up with terror on their faces. The collective gave us a choice. We could submit to harvesting, which meant they would take our water, our metals, and our people to use as slave labor. Or we could refuse, and they would burn our planet until nothing lived. Admiral looked at the delegation. She knew their history. The collective had been their trading partner for thousands of years. We had no fleet. We had no shields. Our most advanced weapons were nuclear missiles that could not even scratch their hulls. We were farmers with pitchforks facing an army with tanks. She paused. We chose to submit. What else could we do? Our children were dying. Our cities were burning. We had no hope of winning. The screen showed images that made several delegates look away. Humans in chains. Humans being loaded onto transport ships. Humans being separated from their families, screaming and crying and reaching for loved ones they would never see again. The collective ruled our world for 11 years. They took everything they wanted. They killed anyone who resisted. They treated us like animals because to them, that is exactly what we were, just another primitive species to be used and discarded. Admiral's voice remained steady, but her hands had tightened into fists at her sides. But here is the thing about humans that the collective never understood. We do not give up, we do not accept our fate, and we never ever stop fighting. The screen changed again. Now it showed different images. Humans meeting in secret. Humans passing messages through hidden networks. Humans stealing collective technology and taking it apart to learn how it worked. For 11 years, we pretended to be broken. We bowed our heads and did what we were told. But in the shadows, we were learning. We were building. We were preparing. The delegates leaned forward. Even, who had brought the extinction motion, seemed caught up in the story. We could not match their technology, so we found other ways. We poisoned their food supplies with chemicals that did not affect humans but made collective soldiers sick. We sabotaged their ships with simple mechanical failures that their advanced computers could not detect. We spread diseases that jumped from human hosts to collective bodies. We turned their own weapons against them whenever we could steal them. The screen showed a collective soldier lying dead in a human street. Standing over the body was a teenage girl holding a weapon that was bigger than she was. Her face was dirty and tired, but her eyes burned with something that could not be extinguished. The collective had faster-than-light travel. They had energy shields and genetic modification and artificial intelligence. They had ruled 100 worlds for 10,000 years. They thought they were gods. Admiral smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They were not gods. They were just another species that made the mistake of thinking humans were weak. The screen erupted with images of chaos. Collective orbital stations burning. Collective ground forces being overwhelmed by waves of humans carrying stolen weapons and homemade explosives. Collective ships trying to flee and being shot down by missiles that should not have been able to reach them. In the final battle, we lost 2 million soldiers in a single day. 2 million people who knew they were going to die and attacked anyway. Because that is what humans do. When someone hurts our families, when someone takes our children, when someone tries to break us, we do not calculate the odds. We do not ask if victory is possible. We just fight until we win or until we are all dead. She let the images fade and looked out at the silent chamber. The collective no longer exists, not because we wanted revenge, not because we enjoyed killing them. They no longer exist because they gave us no other choice. It was them or us, and humans will always, always choose us. Admiral turned to face Ambassador directly. You showed this council footage of humans destroying. You called it aggression. You called it dangerous. Let me show you something else. The screen lit up with new images. A human colony, simple buildings made of metal and stone, gardens, playgrounds, families having meals together, children laughing and playing in the sun. This was Colony 7. It was a farming world. 40,000 people lived there. Teachers, doctors, engineers, parents, children. They had no military. They had no weapons beyond what was needed to hunt animals for food. They were the most peaceful community humanity had ever built. The next images were harder to look at. The Etherian delegates flickered rapidly, their equivalent of covering their eyes. Several other species made sounds of distress. They came to 7-8 months ago. They did not come because the colonists were a threat. They came because their bioships needed organic material to feed on. And humans, it turns out, are very efficient organic material. The screen showed what remained of the colony. Broken buildings, empty streets, and massive biological processors still digesting the remains of 40,000 people. There were no survivors, there were no prisoners, they ate everyone. Men, women, children, bobbies, they ate them all. Admiral's voice finally cracked, just slightly. One of those children was my granddaughter. She was 6 years old. Her name was Maria. She liked to draw pictures of flowers and sing songs about stars that turned her into food. The chamber was completely silent. So yes, Ambassador, when we found the fleet, we did not negotiate. We did not show mercy. We killed every single one of them, and if I had the chance to do it again, I would not change a single thing. She straightened her shoulders and looked out at the assembled delegates. You want to know if humanity is dangerous? Yes, we are the most dangerous species you will ever meet, but we did not become dangerous because we wanted power. We became dangerous because the universe kept trying to kill us, and we refused to die. She paused one final time. The question before this council is not whether humanity should be feared. The question is whether you want us as friends or as enemies, because I promise you this. If you vote to kill us, we will not go quietly. We will fight. We will make the destruction of the look like a small disagreement. And even if you win, even if you manage to wipe us out completely, you will never forget what it cost you. She turned and walked back toward her seat. The choice is yours. While Admiral returned to her seat, something far more dangerous than politics was happening in the lower levels of the council station. Ambassador had not brought this vote forward because he was afraid of humans. He had brought it forward because he had been planning this moment for decades, and he was not alone. 3 levels below the main chamber, in a room that did not appear on any official map, 12 beings gathered around a table made of dark metal. They came from different species. Some had scales, some had shells, some had no physical bodies at all, existing only as patterns of energy held together by ancient technology. They had one thing in common. They all wanted humanity dead. She is turning them, said Prelate Axe of the crystalline hegemony. His body was made of living silicon, and it vibrated with anger as he spoke. Did you see the Etherians? They became visible during her speech. They are feeling sympathy for the humans. The delegation looked uncomfortable when she mentioned the collective, added a being that appeared as nothing more than a sphere of purple light. They remember that partnership. They do not want to be associated with slavers. It does not matter, said a new voice. The voice came from a holographic projector in the center of the table. The image showed a similar to Ambassador but older, with scales that had faded to a dull gray. The other conspirators knew this being only as the architect. They did not know his real name. They did not know where he was. They only knew that he had been planning the destruction of humanity for longer than most of them had been alive. The vote may fail, the architect continued. This was always a possibility. Admiral is more skilled than we expected, but the vote was never the only plan. It was not even the main plan. The conspirators looked at each other nervously. The contingency is ready, the architect said. A pathogen specifically designed to kill humans and only humans. It was created using genetic samples we obtained during the collective occupation. To human doctors, it will appear to be a natural mutation of an existing disease. By the time they understand what is happening, billions will be infected. Earth will die within a standard year. Shifted uncomfortably. His scales flickered with colors that showed his uncertainty. The contingency was meant to be a last resort, he said. If we deploy it and someone discovers the truth, the consequences could be severe. The Council has rules against engineered plagues. The Council has rules against many things, the architect replied calmly. The Council also failed to stop the collective from enslaving humans. It failed to stop them from eating human colonies. Rules mean nothing without enforcement, and no one will enforce rules against us once the humans are gone. The sphere of purple light pulsed. The pathogen is already on this station. It has been here for 3 days, hidden in a maintenance compartment that no one ever checks. When the time comes, we will release it into the air recycling system. Every human on this station will be infected within hours. They will carry the disease back to their ships, to their colonies, to Earth itself. The spread will be unstoppable. Prelate Axe made a sound that might have been laughter. And if the vote succeeds, if the council actually agrees to exterminate them, then we will have legal authority to kill them quickly instead of slowly. Either way, humanity dies. The only question is how long it takes. The conspirators nodded in agreement. The plan was perfect. The humans had no idea what was coming. In a few hours, it would all be over. But they had made a mistake, a small one, a simple one. They had forgotten that humans were very, very good at listening. 3 levels above, in the cramped quarters assigned to the human delegation, a young man named was staring at his computer screen with wide eyes. Was a junior. His job was to handle paperwork and arrange meetings and make sure the important diplomats had coffee when they needed it. He was not important. He was not supposed to be doing anything significant. He was also very good with computers. Too good, some would say. Good enough that he had figured out how to tap into the council station's communication network without anyone noticing. It was completely illegal. If anyone found out, he would spend the rest of his life in a military prison. But had always believed that information was the most important weapon in any conflict. He had been listening to alien communications for months, looking for anything that might be useful. Tonight, he had found something that made his blood turn cold. He played the recording back. The voices, the plan, the pathogen, Earth dying within a standard year. His hands were shaking as he stood up from his computer. He needed to tell someone. He needed to tell Admiral. He needed to do something, anything, before it was too late. He ran. Admiral was standing in a corridor outside the main chamber, speaking with an Etherian delegate who had approached her after her speech. The Etherian's form kept shifting, flickering between visible and invisible, which had learned was a sign of strong emotion. "Your words were powerful," the Etherian said. "Many of us did not know about the collective occupation. Many of us did not know about 7. We were told that humans attacked the without cause." "I appreciate you telling me this," replied. "It gives me hope that perhaps this vote will not go the way Ambassador expects." Before the Etherian could respond, burst around the corner. He was breathing hard. His face was pale. He looked like a man who had just seen a ghost. "Admiral," he gasped, "forgive the interruption. I need to speak with you, now, alone. It is critically urgent." Looked at his face and immediately understood that something was very wrong. She had seen that expression before, on soldiers who had just learned that the enemy was closer than anyone thought. "Ambassador, I apologize, but I must attend to this matter. Can we continue our conversation later?" The Etherian flickered in what might have been a nod. "Of course. I hope that whatever has disturbed your young colleague is not too serious." Waited until the Etherian had drifted away, then pulled into an empty room. "What is it? What have you found?" Handed her his data tablet. "I have been monitoring communications on this station. I know it is illegal. I know I should not have done it. But Admiral, you need to hear this." Took the tablet and pressed play. The voices of the conspirators filled the room. The plan, the pathogen, the architect, Earth dying within a standard year. Listened to the entire recording without moving. Her expression did not change. When it was over, she set the tablet down very carefully. "How long ago was this recorded?" "Less than an hour ago, Admiral." "Do you know where the pathogen is stored?" "They mentioned a maintenance compartment, but there are thousands of those on this station. We would need to search for days to find it." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her communication device and entered a code that only a handful of people in the entire fleet knew. "Get me a secure line to the Defiance. Tell Captain to prepare for emergency deployment of Protocol Omega." Felt the blood drain from his face. He knew what Protocol Omega was. Every officer knew. It was humanity's final contingency. A dead man's switch. A promise that if humanity was ever destroyed, they would take everyone else with them. "Admiral," he whispered, "Protocol Omega is." "I know exactly what it is, Lieutenant." Put on her jacket and checked the weapon she had hidden beneath it, ignoring the diplomatic protocols that said she should be unarmed. "It is humanity's way of saying that if we die, everyone dies with us." She moved toward the door. "But we are not going to let it come to that. Not if I have anything to say about it." She paused and looked back at. "You did good work tonight, Lieutenant. Whatever happens next, remember that you might have just saved our entire species." Then she was gone, moving through the corridors of the council station like a predator hunting prey. The conspirators had made their plans carefully. They had accounted for every possibility they could imagine. They had not imagined. The vote was 12 hours away. Ambassador had returned to his private quarters, confident that everything was going according to plan. The pathogen was ready. The conspirators were in position. Whether the vote succeeded or failed, humanity would soon be nothing more than a memory. He was meditating when the lights went out. The darkness lasted only a moment. When the lights returned, Admiral was sitting in his chair. Her legs were crossed. A plasma pistol rested on her knee. She looked completely relaxed, as if she had simply stopped by for a friendly conversation. Behind her, 4 more humans stood in the shadows, had not heard them enter. He had not seen them arrive. They were simply there, as if they had materialized out of thin air. "Ambassador," said pleasantly, "I think we need to have a conversation about bioweapons." Scales turned bright red, the color of danger and threat. He reached for the device on his wrist that would activate his personal shield, but before his hand moved more than an inch, one of the humans in the shadows produced a weapon and pointed it directly at his head. "I would not do that if I were you," said. "My people are very good at their jobs. You would be dead before your shield finished activating." Slowly lowered his hand. His mind raced through possibilities. How had they found out? How had they gotten past station security? What else did they know? "You cannot do this," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "This is a diplomatic station. I am an ambassador with full immunity. If you harm me, you will start a war." "A war you were already planning." Pulled out a small device and projected a holographic recording into the air between them. Watched in horror as his own voice filled the room. The meeting with the other conspirators, the discussion of the pathogen, the plan to kill every human in existence. "We have identified 11 of your co-conspirators," said when the recording ended. "The 12th, your architect, appears to be a senior member of the government who has been working against humanity for decades. We know who he is. We know where he is. He will be dealt with in time." The ambassador's scales faded from red to a sickly gray, the color of surrender. "How?" he whispered. "Our communications were encrypted with quantum-locked ciphers, the most advanced encryption in the galaxy. No one should have been able to break them." Smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We broke those ciphers 40 years ago. We just never told anyone." She leaned forward. "Here is something your intelligence services never understood about humanity, Ambassador. We show you exactly what we want you to see." She stood up and began to pace slowly around the room. The humans in the shadows moved with her, always keeping in their sights. "You called us newcomers, primitive, dangerous because of our aggression and our breeding rate and our ability to survive in hostile environments. You looked at our technology and decided we were inferior. You looked at our history of war and decided we were barbaric." She stopped packing and turned to face him. "What you never considered is that we let you believe all of those things. We let you think we were simple. We let you think we were reckless. We let you believe that we stumbled into destroying the through luck and rage." Her eyes were cold and hard. "The truth is that we have been preparing for this vote since before you knew we existed. We identified the anti-human coalition decades ago. We mapped your networks. We learned your secrets. We developed countermeasures for every plan you could imagine, and several that you could not. The pathogen said, his voice barely a whisper. What have you done with the pathogen? It is currently being neutralized by nanomachines we introduced into the station's air recycling system 6 hours ago. Your weapon is already dead. It was dead before your meeting even ended. Slumped all the planning, all the years of work, all the careful preparation. It had all been for nothing. The humans had been watching the entire time. Then why come to me? He asked. Why not simply expose us to the council? Why not have us all arrested? Was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, almost gentle. Because I am giving you a choice, something your coalition never gave humanity. She pressed a button on her device. The holographic display changed. Now it showed images of human colonies throughout the galaxy, schools where children of different species learned together, hospitals where human doctors treated alien patients, families of mixed species, humans living alongside dozens of other races. We did not come to space to conquer, said. We came because we were curious, because we had spent our entire existence looking up at the stars and wondering if there was anyone else out there, because we dreamed of meeting others like us, different but alike in the ways that matter. She looked at with something that might have been sadness. Your coalition sees us as a threat because we are strong, but strength is not why humanity has survived. We survived because we learned to cooperate, to adapt, to find allies in the darkest circumstances. We survived because we discovered that working together was more powerful than fighting alone. Did not understand. What choice are you offering me? Tomorrow you can testify before the council. You can expose the conspiracy yourself. You can tell them everything, admit your mistakes, and help us show the galaxy that coexistence is possible. That fear does not have to win. That species who have been enemies can learn to be friends. She paused. Or you can stay silent. We will release the evidence anyway. The conspiracy will be exposed, but your species will bear the shame alone. You will be remembered as the one who tried to commit genocide and failed. Your children and their children will carry that shame forever. Scales shifted through a dozen colors, reflecting the confusion and conflict inside him. Why would you offer this? He asked. After what we planned, after what we almost did to your species. Was quiet for a long moment. When she answered, her voice was heavy with the weight of experience. Because revenge is not the same as justice. Because I have spent my whole life fighting wars, and I have learned that making enemies is easy. It is making friends that is hard. Making peace is hard. Building something instead of destroying something is hard. She walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back. Humanity has been given many reasons to hate the galaxy. We have been enslaved and attacked and nearly exterminated multiple times. We could easily become the monsters you fear we are. We could build weapons and conquer and take revenge on everyone who ever hurt us. Her voice softened. But that is not who we want to be. We would rather have your people as allies than as enemies. We would rather build a future where our children can grow up without fear than live in a universe where everyone is waiting for the next war to start. She opened the door. The vote is in 12 hours, Ambassador. In 3 hours, High Arbiter Thessaly 9 will receive an anonymous data package containing all the evidence of your conspiracy. Before that happens, you have a choice to make. She stepped out into the corridor. I hope you will make the right one. The door closed behind her, leaving alone with his thoughts and his guilt, and a choice that would determine the future of his entire species. For a long time, he did not move. Then slowly, he reached for his communication device and began to compose a message. The council chamber had never seen anything like this. Ambassador stood at the central podium, but he was not there to argue for the extinction of humanity. His scales, which had glowed with anger and confidence just hours before, were now dim. His voice, which had been strong and certain, now trembled. "I have come to confess," he said. 3,000 delegates fell silent. Even High Arbiter Thessaly 9 seemed surprised, its ancient processors working to understand what was happening. The motion I brought before this council was not about protecting the galaxy from a dangerous species. It was about fear. It was about jealousy. It was about established powers trying to eliminate a rival before they could become too strong to control. He pressed a button, and the holographic screens around the chamber came to life. They showed recordings of secret meetings, communications between conspirators, plans for a bioweapon that would have killed every human in existence. 12 species were involved in this conspiracy, including my own. We planned to release an engineered pathogen that would appear to be a natural disease. We planned to kill billions of innocent people, including children. We planned to commit genocide and blame it on fate. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in anger and disbelief. The representatives of the crystalline hegemony tried to leave and found the exits blocked by council security. Prelate Axe demanded his diplomatic immunity even as guards surrounded him. Raised his voice above the chaos. We told ourselves that humans were dangerous. We told ourselves that we were protecting the galaxy. But we were lying. We were afraid, and our fear made us into the very monsters we claimed to be fighting against. The noise slowly faded as delegates realized that was not finished. The humans discovered our plot. They found the pathogen. They identified every member of our conspiracy. They had the power to expose us immediately, to demand punishment, to use this as justification for the very aggression we accused them of. He paused. Instead, Admiral came to me privately. She gave me a choice. She offered me the chance to confess, to take responsibility, to show that redemption was possible. She did not have to do this. After what we planned, she would have been completely justified in treating us as enemies. His scales flickered with colors that the translator could not fully capture, but that suggested deep shame and something that might have been wonder. She chose mercy instead of revenge. She chose to offer trust to someone who had proven he did not deserve it. And now, I understand why humanity is truly dangerous. He looked directly at the human delegation, where Admiral sat quietly watching. They are dangerous because they still believe in hope. After everything that has been done to them, after all the pain and suffering and betrayal, they still believe that the future can be better than the past. They still believe that enemies can become friends. They still reach out their hands to those who have tried to kill them. He bowed his head. I do not know if my people deserve such mercy. I do not know if I deserve it, but I am grateful that humanity is willing to offer it anyway. The chamber was completely silent. High Arbiter Thessaly 9 spoke, its voice resonating through every being present. The evidence has been, the conspiracy to commit genocide against humanity is proven beyond any doubt. A long pause. The original motion for extinction is hereby. A new motion is proposed. Formal investigation and potential sanctions against all species and individuals involved in the conspiracy. The vote was unanimous. But Thessaly 9 was not finished. This council was created to prevent exactly what nearly happened today. We exist to ensure that no species faces extinction without fair judgment. We exist to maintain peace and promote understanding between different forms of life. Today, we failed in that purpose. The ancient AI's consciousness seemed to focus on the human delegation. Admiral Humanity was given one chance to speak in its defense. It used that chance not for threats, not for anger, but for truth. Even when confronted with a conspiracy to murder your entire species, you chose revelation over revenge. You chose to offer redemption to those who had plotted your destruction. Stood slowly, every eye in the chamber was on her. Your species has been part of the galactic community for 200 cycles. In that time, you have been enslaved, attacked, and nearly exterminated more than once. You have every reason to distrust us, every reason to build walls and weapons and prepare for the day we turn on you again. Thessaly IX's next words would be studied and debated for centuries to come. Instead, you have chosen to show us what true strength looks like. Not the ability to destroy, but the courage to trust. Not the power to take revenge, but the wisdom to build bridges. Not the force to conquer, but the grace to forgive. The AI paused, and when it spoke again, there was something in its voice that might have been admiration. High Arbiter Thessaly IX formally moves that humanity be granted full council membership, with all rights and responsibilities thereof, not as newcomers to be monitored, not as threats to be contained, as equals, as partners, as friends. The vote took 7 seconds. It was unanimous. The chamber dissolved into chaos of a different kind. Delegates rushed to congratulate the humans. Species that had been suspicious now wanted to offer trade agreements and alliance treaties. The conspirators were led away by security, but even that was done without violence or cruelty. Admiral stood in the middle of it all, accepting congratulations and shaking appendages of every shape and size. But inside, she felt something she had not allowed herself to feel in a very long time. Hope. She thought about Earth, the blue planet that had given birth to a species too stubborn to die. She thought about the collective occupation and all the others who had tried to break humanity. She thought about her granddaughter Maria, who would never see this day. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived the occupation as a child. The old woman had held his hand once many years ago and said something that had never forgotten. The universe does not owe us kindness, her grandmother had said. That is why we have to make our own. Straightened her uniform and walked toward Ambassador, who stood alone near the edge of the chamber. The other delegates were avoiding him. He had confessed, yes, but he had also been part of a conspiracy to commit genocide. He did not expect anyone to want to speak with him. Ambassador said, extending her hand. Looked at her hand for a long moment. Then slowly he reached out and took it. Human and predator and plotter, enemy and potential ally. Thank you for making the right choice, said. Thank you for giving me a choice at all, replied. They stood there for a moment, two beings from worlds that could not be more different, connected by an act of trust that neither had expected. Around them, the council chamber buzzed with activity. History was being written. Alliances were being formed. The future was being shaped with every conversation, every handshake, every moment of connection between species that had been strangers. Humanity had come to the stars hopping to find friends. They had found enemies instead. They had been enslaved and attacked and nearly destroyed. They had fought back with everything they had, proving that they were dangerous, that they could not be broken. But in the end, it was not their weapons or their strength that had saved them. It was their stubborn, irrational, impossible belief that tomorrow could be better than today, that enemies could become allies, that hatred could be transformed into understanding. Admiral looked around the chamber one last time. So many different species, so many different forms of life, so many possibilities. Then she smiled, a real smile this time, and went to meet the future. Because that was what humanity did. Not because it was easy, not because they were naive, but because the alternative was becoming exactly what their enemies feared they were. And humanity had never been very good at doing what others expected.